Well, good morning and welcome to Mirador Television on this Monday morning. Monday blues? Well, who knows? The world is full of all sorts of odd things this morning. Let's take a quick look at the latest news as it appears since the newspapers went to bed. The NHS Scotland chiefs discuss having wealthy pay for treatment. Wow, a two-tier service. That's the sort of thing that it causes lots of ructions in England. I wonder whether it'll do the same thing in Scotland. There's a murder arrest after two children die in a flat fire. That is the deaths of two young girls in Nottingham. England and Wales in One Love armband talks. That's the question of whether Harry Kane can wear a rainbow armband as it stands at the moment. It seems to be that he will be sent off or given a yellow card the moment he walks onto the pitch. So lots of chat about that. An Albanian migrant says, "I wish I'd never tried to enter the UK. He spent thousands getting here, only to be put on a plane and deported the moment he was here." And the CBI boss has called for solving the worker shortages with immigration. And that has become an issue in Westminster with talk of a soft Swiss-style arrangement with the EU, which would soften up Brexit and put us back under EU law. And libraries at risk of cuts despite rise in users and upsetting abuse sent to that's a typical thing of the internet, is it not? I've had some abuse over the weekend myself. It's the fact that anyone would want to bother enough to get me going. I have no idea why. Right, let's just take a brief break, shall we? Yes, let's. Well, there you are. That was a brief break. That gave me time to check on the newspaper headlines. And let's kick off with the Daily Express, which encapsulates perhaps the main idea of the day is a fury, an absurd idea to go soft on Brexit. They do mention England captain Harry Kane's idea of Gareth Southgate's squad are finally set to get their tournament underway against Iran today afternoon. In the Daily Express, the striker vows to put a smile on people's faces by giving a good performance. And actually, strangely enough, it does. If we actually perform well in football, the mood lightens considerably. It does give us a boost. That I have no quarrel with at all. Well, the lead story, though, is that Tories describing the prospect of a softer Swiss-style version of Brexit as absurd. And that apparently is, despite government denials, is the latest rumour to be swirling around Westminster and causing all sorts of upset. The Sun, Kane vows to lift the nation, but he's threatened with a yellow card, if he steps onto the pitch wearing the armband that is the rainbow armband. Why on earth we allow these things to come into pure sport, I have no idea. There you are. That seems to be the modern mood, and I'm not going to argue with it. If that's the way people feel, that's the way people feel. Lions of Arabia, the Sun puns with the same photo of a defiant Kane. The tabloid says the Spurs captain vows to lift the nation and end 56 years of World Cup hurt for English fans. Well, they are. Let's see how they work out. They're not the favourites by any means, but they did do very well in the Euros. only losing out to Italy, as I recall. The Guardian, climate deal still leaves the world on the brink of catastrophe, experts warn. And the Guardian is saying, mind you, it once again gets involved in the World Cup. It says a humbling for Qatar, writes the Guardian, accompanied by a photo of empty seats during the second half of the Qatar versus Ecuador opening match. A photo of comedians Frank Skinner and David Badiel catches the eye in the corner as the pair insist their famous Three Lions song is about losing, while the lead story centers on the climate deal struck in Egypt early on Sunday morning. So you may want to look at that deal. Apparently, as usual, with all sorts of compromises, nobody is happy. The Star. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Super Kane. Let's hear it for England, he says. The Star likens Kane to Superman as he aims to lift the nation by going all the way in Qatar, while the paper also features another England legend, Jill Scott, sharing a story in the I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here jungle in Australia. That really gets me excited. The Eye. Tory MPs warn Sunak over a Swiss deal with the EU. Jubilant Ecuador fans are pictured on the front of the Eye after Qatar was soundly beaten by the South American nation. Sir Rod Stewart features on the side of the front page as the paper reviews the rock legend. The lead story, though, centers on Tory MPs warning against reports of a Swiss-style trading relationship with the European Union. The government has categorically denied that the model is an option. There you are. One says no and the other says maybe. Anyway, don't. The Daily Mail is World Cup threat to England's Harry. Kane leads our bid for glory today. Will he be booked for a rainbow armband? Well, that's bound to draw a lot of viewers. Will he or won't he? What's going to happen? Will he be sent off? Oh, dear, dear, dear. After a shock claim the UK could seek closer EU ties, Tories warn, don't betray us on Brexit. The Daily Mail asks whether Harry Kane will be booked for wearing a rainbow armband as he prepares to lead England in the opening game against Iran. The splash story focuses on some Tory MPs warning Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt not to betray them on Brexit. Where this came from, I have no idea. If the government is denying it, it's presumably it didn't come from them. But the rumours swirling around Westminster are that to improve trade with the EU, Jeremy Hunt has approached the EU to say, can we perhaps negotiate a Swiss-style deal? Switzerland has a no free movement agreement, so it doesn't suffer immigration, just open doors. But in all other respects is tied to the EU. And I think that the Brexiteers would certainly not be very happy with that. Metro, the Wad a waste, how bad is bad? The Metro leads on comedian Joe Lycett apparently burning £10,000 in cash to protest David Beckham's role as an ambassador for the Qatar World Cup, with the headline, What a Waste. The paper says the protest sparked a storm as the TV host donned ear defenders and a rainbow tool as he, is that tool or tule? I have no idea. As he live streamed himself pouring notes into a wood chipper. Bit of a daft thing to do, and everybody's having a tough time economically. The Financial Times, the UN Climate Summit ends in discord after agreeing help for poor nations. Another triumphant image of Ecuador players applauding their fans features on the front of the Financial Times. So the World Cup has even got to the Financial Times. As it says in its lead, that the COP27 Climate Summit ended in discord as Saudi Arabia and Russia put up staunch resistance to upping the pace of curbing fossil fuels. I suppose both of those countries have self-interest. The Saudi for oil and Russia for gas and coal, I suppose. The Times, patients to face longer NHS waits for years, it says. Moving away from the World Cup briefly, the Times splashes on a story about NHS patients facing long waiting times for ambulances and A&E care as ministers accept there is little hope of hitting key targets by the next general election. Back to football and broadcaster Des Lynam. His famous "Shouldn't you be at work?" remark from the 1998 World Cup intros an article on millions of England fans working and watching from home. The Daily Telegraph: cancer toll surges in the wake of pandemic. The Telegraph stays away from the rumours in Westminster about Brexit. More warnings from Tory Eurosceptics in the Daily Telegraph as they urge the government not to strike a Swiss-style deal with the EU. However, the paper leads with figures suggesting that hundreds more people than expected are now dying of cancer each month in England after missed diagnoses in the COVID pandemic. Well, there we are. Those are the latest news, and that's what's going on in the headlines. Let's go. Hang on. Let's tweak a tail.
Well done, the energy companies. They're full of bright ideas to help their customers. Now they've made power so expensive that for an average house such as this, you can't afford to heat it. So you don't need appliances such as this. But that means you also don't need a fridge, because you can keep your groceries cool and fresh without it. The house is cold enough. Well done, chaps.
Well, I love tweaking the tales of the energy companies. They don't seem to be much better, one better than the other. I must say that the treatment that they hand out to people, despite all the efforts by them to pretend that they're handing love with the government to make life easier for particularly the elderly and so on, is so much BS. They're not at all. And not least of which is because they're still controlled by computers. I don't know when people are going to wake up to the fact that computers are running us, not people. And if that's the case, we're in trouble. We're in serious trouble. But that's just me. Let's quickly look at a couple of stories over the weekend. The A27 was closed due to a serious crash involving multiple vehicles. It's near the A26 Polegate Junction, and it was closed in both directions, and the road is closed due to the incident on Sunday. Multiple vehicles have been involved in the crash, which occurred near the A27 junction with the A26 at Polegate. Traffic was queuing in both directions as a result of the closure. Right, okay. The next one is several people, including children, were hit by a motorbike after a fireworks display at Barkham. And a 17-year-old was lifted and taken into custody. He's been out on police bail now. And those two were the main stories over the weekend. Nothing this morning necessarily that we should get terribly excited about. But there are lots of a girl 17 in critical condition after the A27 motorcycle crash. The A27 seems to have been a black spot over the weekend. I think that probably gives us a little bit of a taste of what is on or has been on over the weekend. The weather this morning it's pretty chilly. It's 9 degrees is going to be the top. And considering that a few days ago, well, a week or two ago, we were still hitting 17. That's one hell of a drop. So do wrap up when you go out this morning. do try to keep yourself warm. What time is it? It's 8:46 on the 21st of the 11th. That's the 21st of November in the year 2022. We're rapidly coming to the end of this year, and where it has gone to, heaven only knows. We say that each year, but really, it does seem that that the months and the years zip by. Is that because we're old, or is it because our sense of time has changed? Who knows? Who knows indeed? The main headline this morning is we've got a nice bit of a competition in the background there. Is that the television on? Oh, it is. Yeah. Heavens to Betsy. Heaven only knows what's that about. Let's. We better. I think we better do a little bit of checking here because normally we don't have this of a morning. But let's go to Lewis in the clouds and. There we are, and we solved that. It's quite by accident. So we're back. This morning is the main controversial bit is that and I just am trying to take a look at. Right. Okay. Well, I seem to have found myself, and hopefully that is the picture seems to be okay this morning, and I'm very pleased with that. So you've got me for the rest of the morning. Suzanne Mouchot was actually what a woman she is. She's our correspondent from New York, but she's actually in the western part of the United States, tramping across a desert on the weekend. So she said, could she actually come on tomorrow morning instead of today? So indeed, we will actually look forward to having her tomorrow morning. So let's just return to the main story this morning. Well, there are two main stories, I suppose. We can't help it. The World Cup in Qatar, it has been a very controversial. Strangely enough, I've had a number of people from Qatar that I've been training in various communications situations over the last 12 months. They are actually delightful people. But the fact is that they are a sheikdom. They are a kingdom, if you like. And those are the people that call the shots. So we, in many ways, I'm going to pull myself up a little bit further so I can stop those flashing lights from behind me. We hope that this goes off without too much bother. It's a sorry state when something as important in the sports world as the World Cup gets involved in politics. It's inevitable, I suppose. It's inevitable. But I just wish that we could leave sport alone and cut it off from the nonsense. Harry Kane has said, I want to lift the nation's spirits. And indeed, it does. If we do well in various competitions, the mood of the nation improves enormously. So in that, I would support Harry Kane if, in fact, he can deliver. Not sure he can, but nonetheless, if he can, it would do us a world of good. But if the question of him being sent off because of his rainbow patch on his arm, or that Qatar human rights issues and so on and so forth is then let us stop having World Cups because they do not achieve any purpose if all the emphasis is taken away from what's happening on the field. To what's happening in the corridors of power in various countries. It just is not. It's not on. And that is the one issue that is in the headlines that bothers me this morning. The second issue is the suggestion. And I have to say it's only suggestion because where it came from, it came out of left field. The only thing is that Jeremy Hunt and Rishi Sunak both have a job in hand to try and balance our books. And they are looking at any option to increase revenue. And one of the options that is suggested that they're looking at, although they deny it, is that we would virtually, to all intents and purposes, rejoin the EU. And that would be to improve our trade with the continent, which has taken a dip. Of course, howls of outrage from the Brexiteers, and I think rightfully so. The people were asked and the people spoke. And despite the fact that those people who didn't want to leave the EU won't leave it alone, is unfortunately that was the decision. And yes, of course, thoughts may change, but then they change all the time on decisions that we make. So that is no excuse for going against or fighting underhandedly legislation that has been passed. If you want to change legislation, do it through rule of law. Do it through, by all means, express your views, but do not do it in an underhand way. We have enough divisions in this country. We are divided enough. And it's one of those things that we really do have to be careful about. It is often said of politicians that when they hit a controversial issue, is they just keep on asking in 10 different ways the same question until they get the answer they want. Well, that may be. In fact, it is to some extent a truism. And I just think that we are shooting ourselves in the foot. There is no sense in us saying that democracy is under threat, that we are being suborned by people who do not respect rule of law, who do not respect what our government does, who do not respect our way of life if it doesn't fit in with their way of thinking. And of course, we've got the woke people who are really bothering the hell out of us. But we really do need to take stock. There is no sense in us going around the world as we do with our foreign aid. What is it? 7% of GDP. Telling people to live by rule of law if we're not prepared to do it ourselves. And actually, it is funny, but at the moment we seem to pat on the head, and we don't do anything about those people who will not respect rule of law. That makes us a third world country. That's what we are. We're a third world country until we actually deal with those people who would undermine the basic principle of rule of law. We have a quite sophisticated system of getting our laws in place. It takes quite a long time, and it's frustrating, often very frustrating. But the frustration is worth it if, in fact, what we do is we come to a conclusion that is fair and just. But we now seem to be giving in to those people who want an instant add water and you'll get a result. It is not on. Rule of law is something that is key to any civilized society. And yet we are tending to give way to those people who do not respect it. And it is not fair and it's not just. And actually, if you like, is the fact that there is a lot of upset about the way that the Qataris live, is that basically, if they live by their own rule of law, we should respect that. And if we can't respect it, if we say that it is not a rule of law that we can accept, is we shouldn't go there. It's that simple. What we're trying to do is to get the best of both worlds. And as usual, when you try to get the best of both worlds, they clash. And those clashes become uncomfortable. And we start to get a whole host of things that are just not very pleasant in terms of the way that our society goes, and we start to get upset. I don't think for one moment that in this country we are going to see the rule of law overturned to the point where we will have revolution. I just don't believe that. I don't believe that that's a threat. In fact, our system, the constitutional monarchy, prevents that sort of thing happening. But by the same token, we cannot have people with a set point of view sticking their trousers to the road, marching in the streets, rioting against what they don't like, and then expect us to live by rule of law. We just can't. It just won't happen. Rule of law first. Change the law by legal means second. So both the Qatari situation and the Brexit situation are disturbing, to say the least. Doesn't matter whether you're pro or anti-Brexit. Whatever you do it by rule of law. And I think that if Sunak and Hunt want to, as indeed is rumoured, is to turn that on its head for the sake of extra trade, and because they're in a bit of a bother financially, I think that is the first signs of a crumbling situation where we are a civilized society. Don't let that happen. If you want to change it, if you want to go back, if you want to implement this sort of thing, then do it by rule of law. Do it by, since we went to the people to see whether we should remain a member of the EU or not, then I think it is incumbent upon us to any reversal of that is done in the same way. The sad thing is that this whole business about the EU ripped us apart as a nation. It ripped our families apart. It ripped friendships apart. And why on earth people on opposite points of view couldn't talk about it and discuss it, I have no idea. It just shows that the depths of feeling that were incumbent upon us during the period of transition, of change, were so severe that they would actually cause father to cross with son, families to fall out, best friends not to talk about these things. Was quite beyond me. It was quite beyond me. There you are. Those are the depths of emotion. And once depths of emotion get going, the truth comes out. We are nowhere near the liberal society that we like to think we are. We are quite ready to say to our neighbor, I am not prepared to talk to you in a civilized way if this is what we're going to talk about. That's horrendous. No wonder is bending the knee and all those sort of things that we do to promote anti-isms. And this television station has no isms whatsoever. We have no particular hoe to row. What we do is give voice to a whole wide range of opinions and let you make up your mind whether you like them or you don't. But heavens to Betsy, let us not destroy rule of law. No, let us not. So let's go down. Let's just take just a minute or two to do what our favorite thing is. Let's go down to the park. Let's go down to the woods today. But it's not the woods. Are there any teddy bears in Grange Park? Well, let's take a scan around. Right, I hope that I'm back. Am I back? Yes, I am. And one of the things that has become an issue lately is the food banks and how the food is drying up and they can't handle the demand because of economic situation. Now, we're going to take you back just about a year to the Lewis Food Bank, where one supreme effort was made coming up to Christmas. And let's just remind ourselves about it, because it might just spur you to think perhaps we can do a little bit more. Well, there we go.
My name's Mark Perryman. I've lived in Lewes for about a decade. I'd never really been involved in, I guess, what people would call community campaigning before. I'd always been interested in politics, making a difference, but the coronavirus crisis made me want to do something. And I've kind of been an event organiser since I was a student, so I've got a kind of organisational mind. And I came up with this idea of an all-day food bank collection, which we started at Waitrose on Easter Saturday, and it really grew from there. We started off at one supermarket, and then I contacted the cricket club, Lewis Priory Cricket Club, and I said to Peter, I said, would you come in your whites? He said, yeah, we're coming on whites. Well, they turned up outside Waitrose in whites, pads, padded gloves, helmet, visors down. And so everybody who was going to Waitrose knew that Lewis Priory Cricket Club cared about food poverty, and that's what switched in my mind. I thought, why don't we create not a kind of coalition which is like a committee, but a public and visual coalition. So on our Saturdays, we have 9 sports clubs, 7 bonfire societies, 4 churches, 3 political parties, bands, musicians, artists, poets, keep fit fanatics, chefs, a yoga group, a book group, through the whole day. And we've expanded across all 3 supermarkets. Aldi, Tesco's and Waitrose. It's an extraordinary visual coalition of a town that cares. And also, we're saying food poverty exists in this town, in this wonderful town of ours. There is food poverty, and that stretches to childhood malnutrition. Of course, we shouldn't have to do something about this. We're the 6th richest economy in the world, for goodness sake. We shouldn't have to have food bank. And this is where I get quite emotional. In '84, I was out collecting tins of food for striking miners. And when people say, sorry, I always well up at this, when people say, what are you doing this for? I say, because now we're having to collect food for our neighbours. You know, that's the state that we're in. Obviously, that's been created by the coronavirus crisis, but don't go away with the impression it's going to get any better next year, because then there will be the redundancies and the mass unemployment. And so this is a desperate need, and of course we shouldn't need to have to collect for food banks. But in the here and now, you know, I wanted to stop people being starved back to work. I want to stop people having to starve through Christmas. So, and we're making a difference. We're making a massive difference in this town. We enter each item of food that's been collected. The food bank gives us a list of 24 items they need. So we're not only collecting quantity, it's quality. So we can lift people's morale and lift their health as well. Then we have a very complicated system of delivery to 3 different food banks, Lamport, Mallings and Fitzjohn's, all through the day. Some of them have different needs to others. What we do is we ensure that each food bank gets a third from Tesco's, a third from Aldi, a third from Waitrose. People start by going out on their Saturday shop, and we ask them to add 1 item to their shopping list. Lots of people are generous and they add considerably more, but all we're asking is for 1 item, and that adds up to 5,661 items by the end of the day. And then we have our secret shoppers. We will raise something in the region of £700 through donations. People who can't come out on the day, can't help, they're not shopping, they'd like us to collect something. Our secret shoppers go into the supermarket, and because we've recorded everything that's been donated, we see, oh, we're a bit short of coffee, we're a bit short of bars of chocolate, we're a bit short of cereals, and we bump that up. Lewis is a town full of sounds, isn't it? We've got 13 choirs, we've got brass bands, we've got ska, we've got folk, we've got 7 panto casts. They're going to be there collecting, and they're going to be singing, "He's behind you," "No, he's not," "Yes, he is." You know, there'll be all of that. And it's another symbol of a town coming together. We will be socially distant, we will be wearing masks and visors, and we'll be keeping back. But just to remind people that, you know, the spirit of Christmas is needed more than ever.
Hi, there I am. Now, strange enough, that was for Christmas last year, prior to Christmas last year. And has much changed? Well, social distancing has gone, I suppose. But certainly the appeal for everybody to get behind the food banks because they are needed is the same. And Mark Perriman there showed what can be done when a coordinating effort. And I hope that perhaps behind the scenes, I mean, I haven't spoken to him, but I hope behind the scenes that that coordinating effort is continuing. And who knows where we possibly may end. But at the moment, we are needed. It is needed to needed to try and support our community and to support those people who really are having a great deal of problems. Yeah, so I know you hear all sorts of stories about people who abuse it and so on and so forth. Oh, any system is open to abuse. Not much we can do about that. Let me adjust the camera a little bit. Yes, I like to sort of get intimate. Yes, there we go. So I think it's incumbent upon us to get behind what is a very good community effort and one that is not too difficult. Oh yes, I know. When we go to the supermarket now, is everything is about 50% more. I say 50% more. I actually picked up a package of sliced ham, which I use for sandwiches, and for years, well, I say years, for quite a long time, that package was £1. It is now and has been bumped up to £1.45. That's the sort of inflation, if you like, the increase in the cost of living that is happening in our supermarkets. And can they help it? Probably not. Probably the effects of the economic crisis is being felt by them more than anyone else. And I'm quite sure that they would prefer not to put us through the pain of having to spend far more on our groceries each week. Because if we early in the morning is if we in fact make our selves incapable of supporting our society, incapable of crossing the road, turning the other cheek, and all the other things which our Christian background, and I'm not excluding anybody, Muslims or anybody else, just broadly, I have to talk about my own background, which is a Christian upbringing, and those are the rules that have been instilled into me from a young age. Is basically is to help thy neighbor, and if any time it's needed, is now. And I think that now is when we really need to come to the fore. Yeah, why don't we do it? Let us do it. Okay, am I back? I should be back. I think yes. Let's take a look at something else that we do. Well, first of all, let's go above Lewis into the clouds. Well, there we are. A little look at Lewis from the rooftops, from the air, from a drone, in fact. And one of the things that I would like to say about Mirador and Lewis is we have had an extraordinary luck. No, it's not luck. It's because I strongly believe that every town, every village has inside it a hidden talent, and that the establishment is not geared to actually uncovering that talent. We, on the other hand, are. And two recent successes, if you like, um, Fergus Wood, who is a wine expert and started his own business. And Fergus has gone off to join the Marines, would you believe, because he wanted another challenge. But his business is being looked after by his father. There's Fergus Wood, and the other is Annie Verrill, who is many people will see her in a variety of lookbacks on this television channel. Very, very talented broadcaster, but who was desired to be a lawyer. That was a big driving challenge, and that's what she's gone off to do, I believe. And we wish her every success. But the two of them came together, and they actually did a wine show together. And this is it. So watch out for Bottled Poetry with Annie and Fergus.
Hello and good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Here we are with the second episode, which is all about wine tasting for all the people out there who are wine connoisseurs or just want to know a little bit more about the wines themselves. So we have with us Mr. Fergus Wood, who will introduce himself and tell you all about his company. Hello, Fergus.
How you
Please
doing?
tell us more about yourself. I'm well, and once we get through all these wines, we'll be even better, probably. How are you?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. It'll be a great way. We're recording this at lunchtime, so hopefully it should get us into the afternoon quite nicely. Yes. And
Just the right time for it.
Exactly. Thursday is the new Friday as well, so at least we're starting early. It's good.
Oh, I like that. That's great.
So yes, I'm Fergus Wood. I'm the founder of Camino del Vino, as you can see in the background. We're basically, I'm a new startup. We're about to launch a new startup, online wine startup, where you can find us at www.caminodelvino.co.uk.
I think it's very clever of you to have started this company, because I myself, I don't know much about wine. I know there are 3 different colors.
Yeah. There's 3 main colours, but there's orange wines as well. But we'll go with that.
There we go.
Let's keep it simple to start with.
Shall we leave that for later?
Yeah.
Let's have red and white later on for now. Okay, great. So last time you were about to start talking about this beauty here.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Go with a pearl earring, yes.
Which is a Merlot.
Correct.
Lovely. Here it is. And it's Chilean, is it?
It is Chilean, yes, correct, yeah.
Great.
So it went by a different name, the portrait, or the painting, sorry.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it is, or don't really know.
No, that's fine.
But it's now just known as the girl with the pearl earring because it is so iconic and so distinct.
Indeed.
But this particular Merlot is also great for the region. It just thrives in the Central Valley and the Central Valley it's sort of wedged in between the Andes on the east coast, and then it's got small sort of low-lying mountains on the west side. So it really tucks in below there. And Chilean climate is very Mediterranean. It's very warm and sunny, but then sort of that it gets that through the day. But then when the cool climate from the top of the Andes comes down, when it comes into the night, it starts to cool all the vineyards down, so it helps mellow out sort of the growing conditions, basically. So it doesn't go ahead of itself, really. It doesn't wear itself out through the growing season, so it sort of cools itself down. It doesn't need to start photosynthesizing, and it basically ends up with a lovely, elegant wine at the end of the day, and which we hopefully crack onto now.
I love the way you told that story. You should be a teacher. It's like a nice piece of geography and a little bit of history, and the story behind it. Well done. Can I open the bottle now?
Yeah, should we do it? Yeah. Let's see, why not? I left mine annoyingly in a storeroom outside, so it's a little bit cool, but I think yours should be at a good temperature.
Yes.
Because you don't want it. Red wines, you want them to be like 16 to 18 degrees, sort of like. If you have them at room temperature, you should be fine. But mine's a little bit chilled at the moment, but you should just be fine. You should still get the same flavors, which is good. So,
okay, right. Let's open that up now. Before anyone judges out there, this is what we decided on having the red in, right? Mm-hmm. Because I'm not a very big wine connoisseur, I just grabbed whatever glass I had at home. I just wanted to make sure it's not a pint glass.
No. So it's very good. So if you hold it up to the camera, you can see that in a bulb shape.
Yeah.
Sort of like that. Mm-hmm. That's very good for wines in general, because it helps collect all the aromas and flavors rather than let them go. So when you do swirl it around, and when we go and sniff the wine, you can actually smell all the flavors that are in there. And so it just helps those sort of pinched in walls help the flavors and aromas bounce off and keep inside. So, and where you want to fill it is just below the sort of the widest part of the bulb.
Here?
Just want it, about there. Just fill it out,
just below the widest part.
Yeah, you want to fill it at as wide as part. You just want to fill it slightly below, especially for tasting, because I'd say that you don't want to. Later on after the recording, you can fill it right back up.
No.
Just for tasting, you want to let all the aromas just tuck in. Whereas if you filled it a little bit higher, they may just sort of go out.
Also, let me just ask about the top. Now, of course, many people believe that if it's not a corkscrew, then it's no good. Mm-hmm. If it's just a screw on, what's the truth behind this?
So, there is a slight bit of truth in that. Yeah, a lot of one of my friends as well. He's especially for like these sort of wines, South American wines that do have a corkscrew. He just doesn't. He doesn't believe that good red wines should not be in a corkscrew. It's they should have a cork in it, basically. Just because it's like, what the cork does essentially, it just imparts a different level of flavour onto the wine that maybe the winemaker wants to do. But it's just, again, it could be a cost factor, or it depends very much depending on what the winemaker wants to do. But I guess it is sort of genuinely true that a lot of the cheaper wines do have screw caps, because it does cost a little bit more to put corks in, redesign the bottle and all that sort of stuff. But there are still very good examples of wines which have corks, twisty caps, screw caps on the top. And so, again, it's just like, it's one of those, really. You can just take it as you will. Hopefully you'll like this one, and so, which is a good example of it being a good wine and needing a screw cap. But it's just, it imparts a different flavour onto the wine, basically.
Good. Well, thank you. You demystified that.
You're testing me today.
I told you I'm a novice, so whatever pops in my mind, I shall ask. I don't know if it's silly or not. But...
I like it.
Very good. So now to the important part.
The important.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good. That's perfect. Yeah, that's great. So
lovely.
So what you
swirl.
You just want to give it a quick swirl. And you should be able to, if you just gently put your nose over it, I can sort of, you can smell it already. You should be able to smell like fruit flavors already.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so they're quite typically, especially for this Merlot, they're typically red fruit flavors, so such as strawberries.
I was going to ask, is there strawberry in there somewhere?
Exactly, yeah. So that's very typical of a good Merlot and sort of representing what the grape can offer, basically. And so yeah, give it a big swirl, and then if you want to dig deeper, put your nose in it, and you can try and pick up, especially if you do go a little bit deeper, some sort of floral notes as well that maybe the wine should have as well that could be present in this. You can smell it. I can definitely.
Oh dear. No.
What are you going?
Floral. What type?
If not, no worries. If your nose may not be particularly as attuned as mine, but it's something you may get to develop on later on.
All right.
Yeah. You may as well be able to pick up maybe a slight bit of bell pepper sort of flavor, like green pepper.
Herbaceous.
Yeah, herbaceous. Yeah.
Interesting. You see, I would never have associated green bell pepper with wine.
There we go. Yeah.
It's healthy. It's full of fruit and vegetables. We need more of this.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And then
very good.
So we passed the first test. We've done the smelling. So these sort of flavors as well that you can pick up in the aromas essentially of the wine. You should be able to taste as well when we start to sip the wine as well. So there should be whatever you pick up in your nose should be fairly representative of what you pick up on the mouth as well. But sometimes you may be able to find a couple more flavors that are, for instance, you could not smell on the nose that you could then pick on the tongue.
Right.
But that's just it's dependent on the wine basically, and it's very it's just whatever. Taste is very personal after all. So what you can taste and what you can't taste is entirely up to the person doing it basically. So yeah, we should wait and see.
So turn out I am very rubbish at this, but let's give it a go.
What you want to try and do is when you sip it, you want to try and let the wine sort of cover the inside of your mouth. So try and swish it around as if you're using mouthwash essentially. So you can get a real, especially for red wines, because they contain tannins. You get this sort of general feel and sort of slight covering, but it's a really pleasant covering of your mouth, and a slight drying texture to it as well, which is very representative of red wines. And that's what a lot of people do sort of like, is that sort of slight drying sensation, which helps sort of, it's just nice really. I don't really know how to explain.
You can tell a very good story. Right. Let's see. That's very nice.
Good.
Don't ask me about fruit. I already told you the most important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll just get. That's what I'm saying. As soon as if you pick it up in the nose, just write it down whenever you're tasting. If you're doing a tasting thing, the same again. I've got the exact same one. But yeah, can you sort of feel on your tongue a slight dryness? That's what tannins are basically. There's slight dryness, and this particular Merlot as well, given the region that it grows in and the climate, and quite like medium. They're not too in your face. That some wines we may explore later down in the line. They're not too really boom, but they're not too sort of soft. It's a nice middle ground. It's a nice midweek wine, I'd say. You just get on with it.
It's very easy to drink.
It's a good conversation wine, though, isn't it?
Yes.
Talking about the label, and then you have a sip, and then you're like, they matched it beautifully, I think.
Very good. So would you say that different red wines contain more or less tannin, or is the amount of tannin the same? It's not, is it?
Well, in red wine making, for instance, the tannins particularly come from the skins, and maybe sometimes the stems especially in the classic vineyards that they use. They sometimes put the stems in with the fermentation process, but the skins contain most of the tannins, and this is what is distinguished between red wine making and white wine making is that red wine fermentation process contains all the skins in it with the wines with the grapes, so all the grapes, whereas in the other one they crush and then press the white wine so that it's just the juices that are fermented.
So there's no skin.
So there's no skin at all, yeah. So that's why tannins, you will never feel tannins in white wine. Yeah, it's only applicable to red wine. Yeah.
I like this.
Yes.
Yes, I don't think I like the red wines that contain too much tannin, because when I taste that dryness a bit too much, I can never explain it. It seems, I don't know what's the word for it. What's the best word? Is it too dry then, or too something? But I can never explain. But whenever I taste, yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, it's quite intense, isn't it? Especially when you do get a big bombshell in your face, in your mouth, of a big tannin grape. It's not for everybody's liking, definitely. But I think definitely this one is a lovely sort of evening. Pop it on
by the fire
party. Now they're in, maybe outside of lockdown periods with other people, friends and stuff like that. You can have a couple of bottles of these on a Friday or Saturday night and let everything go. Yeah.
Even for an everyday wine with some food, or in the evenings, I would definitely recommend. It's very, very nice.
Nice.
Right, just a little bit more and then I'll put it away. Very nice. I feel like I want to eat it.
Good. Can you feel as well? I noticed on my last gulp as well, like my tongue being sort of quite fresh in itself. It's like a minty flavour. That's quite addictive as well of the sort of region and Merlot. It's quite like a lovely little, just fresh minty eucalyptus sort of feel as well, which again would be the herbaceous sort of side coming into it.
The green peppers, right?
The green peppers, the same sort of category, yeah.
Right, so girl with the pearl earring, I agree. It's very, very good. Very tasty. Thank you very much. I hope one day you will return with another arty wine.
I do. I have another one. I have a Sauvignon Blanc, which we could do, also from Chile as well. So this would be a great opportunity to go, okay, we've done the reds, now we can move on to the white side of Chile. And especially Sauvignon Blanc, one of Chile's best white wine, great varieties that it produces as well. So.
Thank you very much, Fergus. This was very, very nice. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I shall try it later again, just in case. See if I can recognize the bell peppers later on.
Exactly.
Right. Thank you very much. We shall be back next time. Thank you. Thank you to the viewers, and thank you to lovely Mr. Wood.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
On the microphone. There you are, a little wine lesson from Fergus Wood and Ellie Verrill. Appropriate today is when that was made about a year ago. Right, just let's take a look at the back pages of the papers, because it's obviously taken up with Cata. And as I said earlier, and by the way, you're watching Mirador Television. Out of Lewis and out of the White Hart Hotel. That's why behind us you can see beams and all sorts of paraphernalia that is from the 15th century. And this hotel has had a sterling history, and its history has been part of history, if you like. There is very little import that's happened in British history that hasn't involved this hotel one way or another, directly or indirectly. And it's great to be sitting amongst great historical activity as we broadcast today in the modern world. And a modern world it is. But let's just go to the back pages, because we did mention the politics is getting mixed up with sport in Qatar. And one of the things that is creeping through is when Gareth Southgate lost a couple of matches with the England side, no more than a couple of months ago, the knives were out. Time for him to go. Get rid of him. Woo, boo. And now there is a sneaking acceptance that he has done a remarkable job with the England side, and that the side we've sent to Qatar is capable of anything. Now, this is the World Cup. Anything can happen at the World Cup, as indeed the hand of God proved, I think, in the 1980s, when the Argentinian player, I think it was, managed to very successfully palm the ball with his hand into the back of the net and let the goal stood. And to today, where all eyes will be on the Qatari World Cup to see whether Harry Kane will be sent to the sidelines for wearing a rainbow badge. Dear, dear, dear. But the fact that Gareth Southgate is now back in the frame as being a hero pleases me no end. This man has been articulate all his life. He's a thinker. He's a strategist. And all strategies don't always come off. But he hasn't done too badly at all with his strategy. And the fact that he is the present manager and has stayed the present manager, I think, is a great tribute to his skill and his abilities. And that those people who are talking about let's get rid of him and let's bring in somebody else must at least wash their mouths out, if not eat their words. The whole situation in Qatar is dissected on the back pages, and it is a question of, to me, still, are we talking about football or are we talking about social differences between ourselves and the host country? I believe that the host country should be allowed to keep its own rule of law, as long as it is not talking about chopping people's heads off. The Qataris have rules. They have a constitution. They have a king, and that basis is their rule of law. And it's up to us, if we want to go there, to observe that. If we don't want to go there, then don't, and drop out of the World Cup. But you can't have your cake and eat it. And this is creating considerable disturbances across the whole of the football industry, and for that matter, across the globe. Secondly, that we have got an analysis too prior to a different World Cup, and that is the Rugby Union World Cup, which takes place next year, and the Autumn Internationals, which are helping determine for the coaches and for the fans where their team stands in the pecking order. Well, England have had a very, very rough ride. They were beaten by Argentina in the opening game. They whacked Japan in the next match, and then suddenly found themselves 16 points to 0 down against New Zealand. And they fought back to force a very thrilling 25-25 draw. Not good enough, say the critics. They should really have won that match, and they are not playing to their potential and so on. And of course, undoubtedly, that calls then for the sacking of the coach, Eddie Jones. I don't think that the RFU, or that's Rugby Football Union, to people who aren't rugby players, rugby people, it's up to the Rugby Football Union. I don't think they're going to sack Eddie Jones at this juncture at all. It would be a complete utter madness. But by the same token, is perhaps we should leave the team alone to see if it'll settle down, instead of piling the pressure on about, yes, it will, no, it won't. always awful on the pitch, and it'll never get any better, and so on and so forth. All the things that we hear. That is also obsessing the minds of the last the back pages. So World Cup in rugby, World Cup in football, and this afternoon will tell the tale, because at 1 o'clock our time, the English team take on Iran, and that will then tell us, I think, how strong or how many problems our team will have. But whatever happens, for God's sake, if we lose, don't start taking it out on Gareth Southgate straight away. Give him time to settle this team down. A World Cup is a big event, and it must be very scary to be part of it. Anyway, that's the back pages. Just very briefly looking at the business pages, it's the CBI that is pushing apparently for the government to ease up on Brexit, citing the fact that there are no jobs available in there are no people available to fill some of the jobs, and that's why we're feeling the pinch, particularly in some of our foodstuffs. I don't think that that's the cause at all. But CBI were always very lukewarm, if not anti, leaving the EU. It's strange enough for a business organization. It tends to be somewhat soft on private enterprise principles, but there we go. C'est la vie. There is an article in there that says let's get Britain back to work, and basically pointing out that our economy has suffered from excuse me, our economy has suffered from the working from home syndrome, that we don't really work, that we are not pulling our weight, and I tend to agree with that a little bit. Here, I'm going to do that to try and ease my throat a little bit. And the article is well thought out and does reflect some of my own thinking, that working from home only works so much, and then it starts to creak at the seams. And the combination of big business relying upon computers means that we are really getting out of touch. The consumer and the business people are getting out of touch, but they're growing apart, and that is no good thing. The economy depends upon the customer as well as the manufacturer or the seller. We need to do something about that. Can we ban working from home? I doubt it. And then, I was reading, because I'm very interested to see and to make sure that no television stays up with what's happening in the global TV world, is that in America, the exact opposite is happening, where television stations are being urged to let their correspondents work from home, because they say that when people who in the main are working from home, and it's become a habit of watching television, they feel remote. They feel cut off from those people who are turning up on a daily basis in the television studio and all working together from work, as it were, as opposed to from home. So everything is pulled in two directions. What's What's right? Who knows? But whatever we do, we've got to try to sort out this little bit to try and get Britain back to work. Huh. Oh, now let's do just a gentle one, shall we? A nice gentle something. And one of the things that we do is we try to do things in a different sort of way, and one of those ways is showing things on a basis of railways, model railways. So let's actually take a look at how our thinking goes, that we can show you the excellence of miniatures in terms of railways. We can show you what the wonderful world of steam was like, and at the same time, I give you some sort of little travelogue. Let's try that. Well, there we are. It is we showed you that. There we go. Getting myself back on deck sometimes is a little bit of a problem for me. Perhaps because subliminally I think they've seen enough of me. What are we going to do now? But we should perhaps clear the studio, and then we can't make too many mistakes. We will not have Suzanne Mouchot today because she was off tramping the desert. We forget that North America has deserts. And as she said, I asked her if she went on a camel, and she said, no, a barefoot and jeep. But I was minded to chat to her for a minute or two about my own experiences with a camel, which was in Egypt. And frankly, I could leave the beasts at home. I found them miserable, smelly, awful. The people who drive them are even worse, and they always want to try to nibble away at your toes, and their teeth aren't exactly either hygienic or, for that matter, if they manage to nip you, is the pain of their bite. So I think her choice of going through the desert in a jeep was a wise one, absolutely wise one. Let's just catch up with where we are, where we're at. Generally speaking, the main news over the weekend from here in our part of the world was that the A27 was jammed for a while because of a multiple car vehicle accident at the Polegate roundabout. And also, some people were hit by a car as they left a fireworks display in Barkham. But other than that, it was ongoing news, so really not news at all. Looking at the news here, the papers are full this morning of Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt. Apparently, and I say apparently, because there's no formal, in fact, any formal statement by the government has denied that they are looking at this, but that they are thinking of negotiating a soft Brexit agreement, similar to the one that Switzerland has, where Switzerland, in fact, doesn't have freedom of movement, so it doesn't have huge numbers of people flooding in from the continent, but in all other respects is a member of the EU. That, of course, has set alarm bells ringing amongst those who are pro-Brexit, and that's what seems to be exercising the minds of our esteemed leaders in Westminster this morning. Wow, very, very interesting that. And then the other big thing is Qatar, and I can't say enough that I just wish we would leave sports and politics separately. Yes, there is a right to be concerned about Qatar's human rights record, its attitude towards homosexuality, and so on. But it is a country that lives by rule of law, and the moment we start to tamper, no matter how well-meaning people are, we start to tamper with the rule of law, we actually start to undermine the very basics by which we in the West believe that we have a civilized society. So to me, lay off, get on with it, present a decent spectacle in sport. Don't let us be taken away from that by the political issues, and certainly don't take the political issues onto the pitch. I'm full of admiration for Harry Kane, taking his what he believes in, and being prepared to be sent off for what they are, and that is him wearing a rainbow badge or armband. But it isn't, Harry, part of sport, right, what you're doing. And while sport can be a great leveler, it can be a great influencer, it must not be used so that we are facing a devastation of the game. I mean, can you imagine if Harry Kane is sent off the moment he steps onto the pitch? England will have to go with 10 people, 10 men from the very start. Hardly creativity and the opportunity to stage a really interesting final, an interesting World Cup final. And that's what we really want to watch if we're talking about a World Cup final. Right. Okay. Let us see what we have in store. I know what I'm going to play next. And I have I have a funny view of national character and so on. And while the British, many liberals would say, "What is the English character?" I about a year ago had a chance to try at defining it. And these are the conclusions that I came to. So let's have a look. The Englishman. Peculiar breed, aren't we? We still have very quaint customs. I suppose that outside people see them as quaint. We see them as quite serious to the way that our society should operate. Hugh Grant, when he made the film Love Actually, gave a little speech at a press conference about what England was. I only paraphrase it, but he says something like, "We're only a small country, but we're a great country. The country of Shakespeare, of Harry Potter, of Churchill, of 007.
and a whole host of other people, including David Beckham's right foot, David Beckham's left foot, come to that. And that's the sort of way, I suppose, that we see ourselves, is not in any power structure, but as being potty people from a potty little country, which punches well above its weight. First of all, of course, is the oddity is that we still have what we call English gentlemen. And if you want to define what an English gentleman is, for instance, no English gentleman will ever be seen dead with a tie that matches his kerchief at the top of his pocket. They shouldn't look the same. And yet you will find in the stores that they sell packages of ties and kerchiefs that are exactly the same colour. Well, you're not an English gentleman if you're wearing a tie that matches your bougoutier. In the gentlemen's clubs, it's rather amusing because also, when it comes to sartorial splendour, that the most wonderful suits, pinstripe, blue stripe, any stripe, are worn, but the gentleman does not wear a pair of socks that matches. The higher you are, normally it's red socks. A little more, and I have a challenge with a peer of the realm to see who can outdo each other with socks that look something like this. Striped socks. So far, I'm beating him. I've got a better stripes than he has. But that's the way that the Englishman will dress, and will be very careful about it. There are other oddities. I mentioned the gentlemen's clubs. The other evening, sitting in the cocktail bar, two people who were new or strangers shook hands. And suddenly there was a frozen silence. You do not shake hands in the cocktail bar of the club. And by the same token, in the evening, you don't come in if you're not in a suit. Oh my goodness me, aren't we actually snobs? No, we're not. We just enjoy all these peculiarities. We enjoy reveling in them and don't think twice about them. From outside, there are a number of things which don't make sense, and I thought I might just run through one or two of these things to try and straighten you out. First of all, our form of government. It's a constitutional monarchy. So we have a queen as the head of state, but she has no power. The legislation is made by the House of Commons, which is an elected chamber. But it has to send any of its deliberations to the House of Lords, which is made up of peers, lords of the realm. And they can actually say to any legislation, no, no, no. When they said no the third time, it makes no difference. It goes back to the House of Commons, which then votes on it, and if government's got a large enough majority, it becomes law. No, it doesn't. It's got to go to the Queen, who has no power. But unless she says okay, given, as it's called, royal assent, it doesn't become law. No power, no legislation, unless she says that it's okay, that's fine. And talking of the Queen, of course, Buckingham Palace is where she resides normally, and outside there are guards in wonderful red tunics, marching up and down, stamping their feet, day in, day out, night in, night out, guarding the royal presence. And on their heads are black hats, known as bear skins. Although they're synthetic nowadays, they were made of the skins from bears in the past. Bear skins. But the Queen sent a memo to one of her aides the other day in which she mentioned that she would like some more bear skins ordered. He put it through the computer, and dear old algorithms or logarithms, whatever rhythms they are, sent it back as saying it was unacceptable because it was obscene. The Queen, bare skins, obscene. And those old logarithms certainly get involved in our daily life. In my hometown of Lewes, we have a war memorial that was cast and shaped in 1920. It's a beautiful piece of work. It has around the base 4 maidens. And the architect, the sculptor, designed them so that one of their breasts is barely covered. A colleague sent a piece of video showing the war memorial. It came back obscene. So there we are, bare skins, war memorials, all obscene. Would you believe it? But in Lewes, at the turn of the century, the turn of the last century, in 1910 or so, the famous sculptor Rodin sent the Kiss, his statue of intertwined figures, which is, yes, it's slightly erotic. It wouldn't turn an eye nowadays. But in 1910, it was put in a shed for a little while. And when it was brought out, a local lady took one look at it. Actually, she didn't. She looked at it for 2 or 3 hours and then decided that nobody else should be defiled, that they shouldn't be corrupted by looking at this famous Rodin statue. And so she persuaded the council to put it back into the storeroom that it had been in and keep it there for another 10 years. And famous stories of how troops during the war went into the town hall and they had the statue of Rodin in there and that a cloth was put over so that they wouldn't be too excited by this statue. Nowadays, I think probably people pass it by without a second glance. Telephone booths. Don't we have wonderful telephone booths? Everybody comes to London to see the red telephone booths, except sometimes we've painted them black. Don't ask why we painted them black, but we did. And there are plenty of these phone booths that are red left, but they don't have any phones in them because now we don't use that sort of phone. So the red telephone box stands there with no phone. And if you open the door to look where the phone used to be, the inside is plastered with Bertha invites you to visit her, or Maggie will make you happy, with email addresses. You can get hold of these unfortunate ladies who I'm sure are just welcoming tourists. But it's the way that they actually advertise it in a telephone booth is the amusing way of welcoming people to Britain from the ladies of the street or of the night. Oh dear, aren't we actually just a strange nation? Well, we are. And I suppose that the one thing that we really don't have that much of is good trains. You get onto a train in Britain and it says it is going to Hayward Heath. Halfway there, it stops at Gatwick Airport. And all the passengers are told to get out, because for some weird reason, it is not allowed to go any further. No reason is given. You just can't go any further. So everybody piles out and is told to catch the next train to wherever they're going to. Hayward Heath, Brighton, wherever. Except there are no trains to those destinations. You stand on the platform and you wait and you wait and you wait. And there are no announcements, no nothing. The trains that go nowhere, only we in Britain could have them. We have a lot of peculiarities, and I will, over the coming weeks, just outline some of them to you. Because nonetheless, rural Britannia, we just love the way that we live. And we are almost like animals in a zoo. People come to stare at us and gaze at us. And we allow them to. And we stand there and we love it. Even though we would say, we're quite normal. What's wrong with them? No, we're not. We are eccentric, to say the least. Our airline, British Airways, absolutely wonderful. I got on a flight in Budapest a little while ago, fell asleep, and thought I was on the way to London, when in fact I was woken to hear the lady on the microphone saying, "Welcome to the Algarve." Algarve? That's in Portugal. Yes, he said cheerfully. We got into flight and the computer directed us to the Algarve. Sorry you're not in London, but here you are on the south coast of Portugal, which is warm and has sangria and all sorts of other things. Thank goodness that we're eccentric. Thank goodness that the computers that serve us are eccentric, because now I'm able to pop off to a Portuguese bar and have a wonderful time having a drink and lying in the sun. Mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. Toodle pip.
Well, it's my version of what an Englishman is all about. Let's just catch up for a moment. As who are we? Okay, Mirador Television broadcasts out of the White Hart Hotel, a historic hotel set in the centre of Lewes, once again a historic town. It probably had its charter from Alfred the Great, somewhere around 800. But even so, there were communities there even before then. Although there was little evidence that the Romans paid much attention to this particular site. Although there is plenty around about at some of the tiny little villages, such as Barkham, where there is evidence of the Romans using the river. There is some suggestion that something called the Pell's Pool here, which is now a all year round open air swimming pool. Well, it's not really open all year round, but it's certainly open and it's very popular. People use it extensively. That it started out as some mill ponds, some flooded land, but turned by the Romans into mill ponds, which were then utilized by the monks at the priory. So there is plenty of evidence of pre-Norman activity here. The hotel in question, the White Hart, saw Tom Paine write or develop his rights of man theories, which resulted in the American War of Independence. And indeed, there is a plaque on the hotel suggesting that it is known as the cradle of American independence, and that this is where it happened. So take a good look at those rafters behind us, because those are the originals. Those are the ones that were here in 1500, and they're here today. So a very interesting place to come into. Anyway, Mirador is a local television operation, but we say we are local and not parochial. We tend not to catch stray cats, but we do talk about things that are local, that are of interest, perhaps, to similar people, similar towns, similar communities in anywhere, albeit New Zealand or the United States, or, for instance, South Africa. Those sort of things are of common interest and should be shared communally. And that's what we try to do. It's a bit of a complicated issue, I suppose. The other thing that we try also to do is to establish very firmly the freedom of the press. I am very, very aware of libel, and that is not permitted. It is not permitted by law, but it is not permitted even by accident on this particular television station. But other than that, we open up our microphones and our cameras to a whole range of people who give differing viewpoints, different ways of looking at things, different backgrounds on what's happening. And that we intend to keep, because that is the most precious gift of all, that we are able to have this freedom in this country to express our opinions. And yes, although I am anti-woke, yes, the woke people should have their opportunity to express their opinions. But what they must not do is what any more than the rest of us do, and that is to impose by sometimes force, if you like, their ideas onto the rest of us. Going back to the hotel, in the mid 1500s, the bloody Queen Mary was having taken over from her father a kingdom that, and she was the first queen, by the way, the first female ruler, Boadicea notwithstanding, and she actually put people to death by burning at the stake if they refused to reconform to Catholicism. And 17 of those people were burned in Lewes High Street, no more than 50 yards from where I'm sitting now, and no more than a few hundred years ago, when you really come right down to it. The issue of those martyrs, as they're called, and who are fated on November the 5th by local bonfire societies who recognize what happened to them as much as what happened to Guy Fawkes and his death, and not by hanging. He came pretty close to it, but he realized how painful it was going to be because it was hanged, drawn, and quartered. That was very, very painful. And he managed to throw himself off the executioner's platform and break his neck. Much cleaner and swifter way to die. And some of those martyrs were held here in this hotel in the wine cellar. Some were held in the dungeon under another hotel, the Crown Hotel, which is now the town hall. But they were held separately and severally before being marched out and put to death by burning. Some way to die. In this particular case, I understand that they were put into tar barrels, and that tar barrels were set alight, and that was a particularly nasty way to go, because the tar would get to the body before the flames snuffed out life. Well, there you are. That's who we are. Now, just outside there, it's going to hit 9 degrees this morning, which is pretty chilly. And I can feel at the moment it is a little chilly here in the cocktail bar at the hotel, because the daily trade is still an hour away from opening up. Well, half an hour. It's now 10:21, and there is a nice bright fire blazing in the other lounge, and it hopefully is going to blaze all day. But we have a wonderful, wonderful situation here to broadcast from. We get in at about 7 o'clock each morning, and there are 3 ladies, 3 beautiful ladies. There's Sally, who's the boss. There's Jane, and there's Shannon, all of whom greet you with a wonderful smile, with a cup of coffee, and with looking after you in a most wonderful way. Jane, for instance, this morning had laid out all my gear, ready for me to sit down and start to broadcast. And that is just a wonderful thing to happen. A wonderful thing. You won't get that in many places, believe me. How are we doing? Yes, actually, our picture is holding up this morning, I'm happy to say. We're not having too many technical difficulties. The only technical difficulties is when I press the wrong button. But who do we expect from that? Now, it is 10:23. The date is the 21st of November 2022. I'm Keith Hayes. This is Mirador Television. Well, let's take a look at what else we thought we might show you this morning to fill out the morning and to entertain you. And one of the things that we have is a little look at a variety of things introduced again by very talented Annie Verrill.
To say that the old man likes to tell many stories. Trust me, I know. I've heard all of them. However, I'm never sure if he's telling the truth or not. Here is another story, all the way from Canada.
The Wild Colonial Boy. Well, I disappeared to Canada when I was 18, and what an adventure I had over there. Oh, I've had lots of adventures in my life, and as I tell more stories, some of them will be set in Northern Ireland, some in the Balkans, some in Russia, some in Africa, many different stories, some sad, some funny, some interesting, I think. But while I was in Canada, I used to earn a few bob after I became a journalist, because in those days, even there, and it wasn't anywhere near as bad as it was here in the 70s, you needed to have a union ticket to read the news. So I held a union ticket. That union ticket also allowed me to appear in movies, so I made extra money from being an extra. That's jolly good fun. You rub shoulders with the stars. They haven't a clue who you are, and they're very polite, most of them, but they say yes, no, whatever. But generally speaking, is they don't care, and why should they? They don't give a hoot. But it is good fun, and I mean, I was making $80 for an extra there, and when I did the same thing in Belfast, I got £80. So £80 is about $110 or so. Not a fortune, but enough to go and have a few drinks, and it was absolutely marvellous, terrific money. One movie that I was asked to be an extra in was Carnal Knowledge with Anne Margaret. Isn't that, it was the first supposedly daring film to do with sex. Oh, no, it wasn't pornographic. But we had to appear at parties and so on and so forth. So the shots were taken, and I think I was on that particular film for about 2 days. And it's a good experience, it's a great experience. I would never have not wanted to do it. But the shooting finished, and I think I was supposed to appear at a cocktail party and again walking along the street or whatever. I can't really remember exactly the scenes. But none of them were pornographic, I can tell you that. A few years later, not too many years later, I was working in Belfast, and a new director came. And I looked, and I knew his face. And as you often do, you start to search together. Where have we met? And we tried to think in the UK and so on and so forth. And then he suddenly said, because I was a director at CBC in Vancouver, I said, I was worked for CBC in Vancouver, who did you work for? And we went down that route, and eventually we discovered that there were people jointly that we knew, and that we'd started to do movies, and he'd been an extra. And he said, I loved it because I made all this extra money. And I said, which film were you in? And he said, I appeared in Carnal Knowledge. I couldn't resist the line. I said, there it is, John. I didn't recognize you with your clothes on. Well, you don't get a chance to deliver lines like that very often. But anyway, the story continues because, embarrassingly, I found myself in Maine. And I had got used to using this little story as an after-dinner tale, which I did. And there were half a dozen well-meaning Americans, very nice people in the group, and they said, you were in Carnal Knowledge? And I proudly said, yes. Later in the day, I got a phone call to say, you've been invited to a cocktail party tonight, and somebody has found a copy of Carnal Knowledge. We can all watch it together. So indeed we did, and the movie went on and on and on, and it ended no sight of me or of John, my pal. We'd ended up on the cutting room floor. So our great appearance in the first sexy movie to come onto the big screen was a disaster. Not only were we left on the cutting room floor, but after boasting about it, I had to sit through and uncomfortably say, oh dear, they must have cut the scenes. It sounded as if I was telling absolute porkies. But I'm not. I appeared in Carnal Knowledge. On the video version anyway, I lay, not naked, on the cutting room floor. And unfortunately, that's where I will remain, because I don't think the television version will show any of the scenes that I was in. My stardom from that has ended. It's dried up. It ain't there anymore. But just to finish this little story about appearing in films and so on is what happened, particularly being front of camera in any area, particularly in Vancouver, and I suppose perhaps a little bit with the gloss of being a semi-film star, I was out at Exhibition Park one night, which was the racecourse. And because our radio station broadcast the races, I was able to have a box. And I sat in the box and started to enjoy the evening. And a couple of people went by, and one of them said, hey Keith, I understand that you were filming the other day, you're an extra. And I shouted back, yes, I said, one of my autographs now is worth 3 of John Wayne. And I heard a little ripple behind me, and I looked behind me, and who was there? Yes, the big man himself. My God, the film industry has left me with embarrassment all over the place. He was very gracious. He grinned and he waved. I didn't dare ask for his autograph. But being a film extra has its benefits when you look at the bank account. So my next tall tale, Toodlepip.
Carnal Knowledge, Jack Nicholson, Anne Margaret, Art Garfunkel, and Candice Bergen in Mike Nichols' Carnal Knowledge. Now its time has come.
Well, there you are. It seems that today is a bit about me, I suppose, and I apologize for that. But creating a program where, unfortunately, Suzanne Mouchot couldn't join us this morning, which left a bit of a hole, is you had to put up with me instead. A reminder that we are Mirador Television. And we are broadcasting out of the White Hart Hotel in the center of Lewis. That it is 10:32. on the 21st day of November 2022. And soon we'll all be gearing up ready to shut off the evils of this past year, and there have been many. I don't think that we have had 1 month, starting with January and the shock of lockdown, that hasn't been traumatic throughout the year. And it has had its effect. And we, with a lot of other people, have not yet clawed back satisfactorily to the level we were before lockdown. We've done our best. We've kept at it. We haven't gone under, but we are fighting on a daily basis to keep our head above water. And I hope that we can do that. And I hope that you will do that with us, and that you will help us as much as we can. Just a little note of our contribution to the Christmas period is this year. That it is often said that the Lewis High Street looks like the Grinch has come and stolen it. And although we are not making a contribution directly to the lights and the improvement of the street itself, what we are doing is we are holding a carol concert with the Paddock Choir, and we intend to invite a few local worthies to join us for that evening and to broadcast it so that we can at least show Lewis in a decent light, that we can bring a little bit of cheer, a little bit of singing, and a little bit of socializing to the Christmas period. And that will be on the 22nd, the evening of the 22nd. So if you're around, by all means, tune in and join us. We look forward to having you with us. And indeed, we will. Now, let's see, if it's 10:36 and we're into the last half hour of our program, and do we have any more good things to show you? I am not sure that we do, actually. I think that we very much, let's just remind you who we are. So there you are. That's who we are. And we'll now see if there's anything else that we could show you that might be of interest. We do have a nice little backlog of programs from the previous places before, and hopefully we'll one of the things that I think, looking back, is that things have changed. Let's see. We have a program called New Kids, and New Kids on the Block. Some of those new kids have come and they've gone, and that just shows the changing face, and in some ways the vibrancy of a little town such as Lewis, which is the county town, and should indeed take the lead. And I've got here New Kids, and I hope that it's what I think it is. No, it's not. Oh, I know what we'll do, because we asked. Indeed, we did. We asked our correspondent, Melissa, on Friday about her son, who has produced some programs for us, and it may be that we've got a couple kicking around if we can find them. And we do we do have let's see, do you know one of the things that is let's see, of course, what turns up is never is what we expect, and we well, we do have some interesting stuff, I think.
In the next few days, we are going to camp out in the Grange, in the south of the area of Lewis. The old man likes it here. He thinks he can just laze about and never do any work. Well, we'll see about that. Welcome to Mirador.
All this week we've been down in the Grange Park shooting various bits for Mirador Television. And while I'm here, I was thinking about the history of this town because I'm surrounded by it. And I thought, when I do a rant, why not do it here? Particularly if I'm aided by a little sip of champagne. It does loosen the tongue. But the topics are as serious as any serious topic can be. The first issue that I want to take up is that the computer people are getting out of hand with their damn passwords. Now, it's easy for me to say, or for you to say, he's an old curmudgeon, he's an old codger. What does he know about passwords? But when I made an odd comment about passwords on my Facebook page, I got all sorts of reactions from people of all ages, all persuasions, all backgrounds, agreeing with me. Passwords are getting out of hand. I think they've sent the boys down to the basement and said, we don't know what to do with you during the pandemic. See what you can do to improve the situation. But of course, let computer people loose. And their improvements are to tamper with what is already working. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It doesn't matter what I tap into on my phone, I suddenly get a demand for a password. And at the bottom it says, if you press and click, the password will come up for this particular page, and it never does. There is a red warning saying, this is an old password, you changed it. But I don't remember changing it, and I find it extremely inconvenient that I have to look for a password so that I can get into a page or a site that is mine, and some weirdo off in the middle of Google, wherever, is asking me for a password. It has gone too far, chaps. Get your act together. I once spoke many years ago to an insurance company that had started to take bookings online. And I said to the man who actually started this, what will it take to make this a huge success? And he said, one-stop shop. You pick up the phone, direct line, and everything can be solved. You don't have to do anything else. Well, it's the same sort of thing. At one time, computers and the computing systems were easy to handle. It was a one-stop shop. You had your password, you entered it, you clicked, and away you went. Nowadays, God help me, everything flashes up every time you try to do that, and it makes it very uncomfortable trying hard to get the information, to the point where I have said, and I've sent emails, if you ask me for a password one more time, then I am going to say to people, don't use this site, and I'm going to stop using it myself. So start to think, chaps. It may be that you're security conscious. It may be data protection and all the rest of this silly nonsense. But if you're pissing off the consumer, then you are in trouble, because we are the people that make you work. We are the people that pay for your service. Think twice. And sit down around a table and decide whether the consumer is more important or whether you want to add yet another layer of passwords. Keith Hayes. Good.
I'm sorry, for some reason we have lost our mainstream internet connection, and so the picture has gone a little fuzzy. But for most of the morning, we've done quite well, I'm happy to say. Sometimes it just doesn't last that long. So we're back onto our secondary, and that's not quite as good, unfortunately. I think that we haven't done too badly this morning by you. It is now 10:45, and I'm not going to keep you for more than just for 11 o'clock when our standard lockdown. So let's just recap what we've done this morning, shall we? First of all, we reviewed the newspapers. What is in the news? Two things. First of all, the World Cup, which it began in Qatar yesterday, and it started as a controversial operation with people who are sending their teams, also using the occasion to establish their disquiet at the Qatar regime's various lack of implementation of human rights as we understand it. And that is almost overpowering the fact that it is a football tournament and that people are going out into the wilds, into the sands of the Gulf to play football, but also to try to to make their points about human rights and particularly the question of homosexuality, which is banned in the kingdom. And our captain Harry Kane plans to take to the field with a rainbow strapped to his shoulder, and he has been warned. Although negotiations are going on, it'll be interesting to see what efforts have worked this afternoon by 1 o'clock. To let him do it, or for him to change his stance, of course, but he's been warned at this particular stage that he'll be sent off. The referee has the instruction to send him off if he's making that sort of political statement. The FIFA has made some acknowledgement that they made a mistake in choosing Qatar. But then again, it was in the days of Sepp Blatter, days of, unfortunately, corruption and huge scandals, and a lot of money changed hands. But now that we're living with the consequences, why don't we just simply try to make it as glorious a celebration of football as we possibly can and forget these other things? I feel sorry for the fans who can't get a beer because it's a dry state, can't get a beer, but they know where they're going and they know what the rule is. And all in all, we really do have to make sure that we follow rule of law. That's the number one issue. The number two is where it's sprung from, heaven only knows. But there were enough papers this morning that headlined it, did it on the front pages, and that is that Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt are thinking of making a deal, Swiss-type deal, which would actually take us more or less back into the EU. And that, of course, has caused howls of outrage and will cause howls of outrage because even though many people may have switched their ideas about Brexit since the vote was taken, it doesn't matter. That vote was taken and it's become part of our order. And rule of law says that we follow our order. So any suggestion that we start to kick against the pricks, as it were, is out of order. It is essential, absolutely essential, that we follow rule of law. Every country needs to follow rule of law. And that law is its law. It may not suit another country. It may be an anathema to another country. And diplomatically, there is no reason why people can't, or one country can't, lobby or use diplomatic means to try to persuade another country to change its law. But if it doesn't, it is essential that we support rule of law in that country. And so many countries are under threat from abandoning their rule of law. It makes it even more incumbent upon us to ensure that that is the number one principle before we actually start to tell other people how we should live or where we should live. It isn't it isn't something that we should I'm looking through our program list, and I shouldn't do that really when I'm talking to you. And indeed, I'm going to stop it because we're so close to the end now. We're only 6 minutes away, 8 minutes away from us going off the air. And so let's try and keep it as sensible as we possibly can. But the fact of the matter is, whether we like it or not, out of Europe, independence from the EU is part of our law, and that we need to observe that law. We need to observe rule of law unless internally we change that law, as indeed we did through a referendum. And if we can't do that, then we have given up all right to be called a civilized country. We have given up the right to go abroad and spend billions of pounds trying to establish in foreign countries through our training and missions and so on, rule of law. We simply have abandoned the right to do that. Well, some people may say, save us 7 billion quid. And I suppose it would. But there are some principles that are at stake. And if there's one thing that's upset me about Westminster in this past 12 months, is that it has not followed very much principle. We've had the tail wagging the dog. And is the tail going to wag the dog again? Because we started off with Boris Johnson. But we'd already seen the tail wagging the dog in the May administration, the Theresa May administration, where in fact she became almost a lame duck prime minister because the backbenchers in Parliament were calling the shots. And then we had Boris, who was a bit of a naughty boy in lockdown. And yes, he did things which he shouldn't have done. But were they serious enough to permit the tail, the backbench MPs, to more or less take over the running of the country again? I personally have my doubts that that's what happened. And then we went from that to Liz Truss, who came in with a great rush of ideas, and the tail did not like those ideas and dumped her after just 40 days. Was that the right thing to do? And was it the right way to do it? Because what's happened is that we have a group of backbench MPs who, having got the taste of blood, now love taking over and showing their might, showing their collective power, and telling the executive what to do. Can Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt stand up to that? Well, I think they're going to be as tested as the previous three prime ministers. I think they're going to be to find that they cannot do too much without incurring the wrath of the backbench people. So that's the two key issues. The two key issues that we are facing in from the front pages of the newspapers anyway. Two key issues we're facing today. So this afternoon at 1:00, and as one paper said, is the famous Des Lynam. His line was, "Haven't any of you got a job to go to?" And one of the key commentaries in the Daily Mail today is from a commentator who says, we really need to get people back to work in this country. So there'll be more beer swilling at home or in the pubs or whatever from people who say they're working from home and aren't. What they're doing is they're watching the World Cup. And secondly, there is much to do about the other World Cup, the Rugby Union World Cup, which takes place next year, because there have been a series of matches this autumn known as the Autumn Internationals, in which England have been involved. And on Saturday night, they provided perhaps one of the most thrilling games that we've watched for a long time. Really thrilling game. But it came in the wake of some very strange and lethargic performances from England before they actually seemed to get into some sort of way of playing together. So you may say, Keith, why are you rabbiting on about what is, to all intents and purposes, secondary sport, rugby union? But it is followed by a large section of our populace. And they'll be excited about their World Cup next year, as many other Brits are about the World Cup, which began yesterday, and which England take on Iran today at 1:00 to kick off our involvement. Okie dokie, that's what it was all about this morning. We have still got inflation. We have still got cost of living crisis. We have still got a war in Ukraine. We have still got all sorts of other crises that we have to face, other decisions to make. But that's where it is at 10:59, just coming up to 11:00 on Mirador Television in Lewis, in the county of East Sussex. This is who we are. And that took us to 11:00. And I'm going to say toodle pip. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and when we'll be once again taking a look at what on earth is concentrating the minds of our politicians, of our social leaders, of our sports leaders, and of all the other leaders who, for some reason, have found it a year of not being able to get it right. Ta-ra.